And you've talked about this before too, employers in the state are really struggling to find qualified people to fill highly skilled industrial factory jobs and even unskilled hourly manual labor jobs. What can you do as a senator, or have you done something already that hasn't gotten a lot of publicity?
First of all, talk honestly about it.
Sure.
Yes, we have some skills gaps, but we have a worker gap. One of the pieces of legislation I propose now, with Ken Buck being the companion piece of legislation in the House, is a temporary visa guest worker program governed by the states. So these visas obviously are granted by the federal government, but state legislators actually have to pass the laws to implement it and pretty well direct it and manage it. Each state would be given under my bill, 5,000 of these temporary visas. They're 3 years, they can be automatically renewed. But states are given a fair amount of responsibility to make sure that those individuals stay in those industries or certainly stay within the state or within states that they can do some compacts with. So I fully recognize that long term we got a worker shortage. But we also have to recognize, why, for example, is, for 6 years I've traveled around, there's not one manufacturing company that can hire enough people. Just about any employer. There's help wanted signs.
Yep.
They can't hire people. Well, we pay people not to work, let's be honest. And we also, when it comes to factory work and that type of thing, we tell all of our kids you got to get a 4-year degree, which kind of implies the trades or working manufacturing is, not what our kids should do. Nothing could be further from the truth. So we do need to get into schools and let our kids know there's more options than a 4-year degree. There's 2-year degrees, there's technical college, there's going to the military, there's going right in the workforce. So many manufacturing companies will actually pay for your education. You don't have to get $30,000 in debt with a fill in the blank studies program that employers aren't valuing. So we have to talk honestly to our kids. We need to stop really pushing debt on them, starting them out in that big hole, and let them know there's all kinds of different options.
There's apprentice programs too, right?
I'm a huge supporter of apprenticeship programs.
Getting back to your guest visa, did you run an analysis of what that would be, kind of an impact that would have in Wisconsin because of the demand for ag workers in Wisconsin?
It's interesting too, because when I first started running in 2010, I announced in May. June was dairy month, so I'm right down at farms. First thing I heard really as a candidate, statewide candidate, we need migrant workers.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I said, well, how about all the unemployed in Milwaukee? So we tried it, that didn't work. Well, that also prompted my working with the Joseph Project, where we're connecting employers now in Sheboygan and throughout the state. Horicon, John Deere's, we got, I think, 20, 25 different employers now interviewing and hiring people from the Joseph Project from the inner city of Milwaukee. But my temporary visa program I'd consider a pilot program. It's about 250,000 visas per year allocated to the states, and then another 250,000 based on population. So that's a start, but I realize it's just a pilot program start.
Okay. Getting back to bipartisanship, can you describe your working relationship with Senator Baldwin, especially in the area of recommending candidates for appointment to federal judgeships?
Well, the first 2 years I just simply couldn't get Senator Cole to come up with a fair method where I actually had, kind of equal input into the process. And so unfortunately never could get anything going. When Senator Baldwin was elected, I had a compact all prepared, and with a couple tweaks, because it was very fair, she agreed to it, and it worked wonderfully well. We were able to fill Eastern District and a Western District judgeship with good qualified candidates. Not as conservative necessarily as what I might want, but kind of consensus choices. We went for the 7th Circuit. We're going through that process, a little more difficult to find candidates at higher level court. And unfortunately, Senator Baldwin violated that compact, broke the confidentiality of the process, submitted the names of 8 people who'd just been interviewed. Some of those people had gotten, at least one of those individuals had no votes from any of our commissioners.
Wow.
So she completely violated that compact. It really set that process back and really prevented from a 7th Circuit judge from being appointed in the last Congress. We're back at it. Hopefully the process will work better this time.
How long of a process is it from opening till?
Well, it's actually pretty rapid from the standpoint when the bar opens up the application process, to receiving the application, to interviews. It's probably a couple-month process. And so we're doing that for U.S. attorneys' positions, and we've got some of those nominated, and we're working on the 7th Circuit right now, and then we'll move our attention to the Eastern District.
Can you talk about the Patch Act, the protecting our ability to counter hacking?
Well, you're seeing another large-scale global attack.
Yeah, the malware.
And it's being represented as this is another one. The NSA basically had their own computers hacked, and some of these vulnerabilities that they knew about were disclosed. Now they're being used. What our process is, it just codifies what currently occurs, where agencies get together. Let's face it, and we should do this. Our national security agencies, our intelligence communities are always looking for vulnerabilities. We want to have the best offensive capability in terms of cyber ourselves, and some of that capability is knowing these vulnerabilities. And the question always is, which vulnerabilities do we want to keep within our classified capabilities, and which ones do we want to disclose immediately to suppliers, software manufacturers, so they can patch those vulnerabilities? The vast majority of those vulnerabilities that are determined are, basically disclosed to the companies so they can patch them. Certainly, what this reveals, particularly with the WannaCry, the systems that were vulnerable were the ones off overseas that were using, in many cases, pirated software that didn't get the automatic updates. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is good cyber hygiene in your own personal computers in your own companies, starting with actually purchasing and licensing the software you're using. Yep. So there's so much just basic good hygiene in terms of your own computer systems would prevent the vast majority of these cyber attacks. Unfortunately, people don't do it. But again, what our Patch Act does is it codifies the process that's already in place, utilizing intelligence community and different agencies to determine which of these vulnerabilities do we need to keep for a standpoint of national security, so we have the most sophisticated potential cyber offensive capabilities, which we need. That's a real deterrent from other potentially enemies using cyber against us. We need to have that cyber capability, but the vast majority of those things really do go through this equities process, and the information is disseminated so that software manufacturers can patch those vulnerabilities.
And then last question.
You're good.
Okay.
Good.
You've been a pretty staunch supporter of the VA, Veterans Administration reform. How did you vote on the recent VA legislation signed into law by President Trump?
No, I voted for it.
And do you think it will successfully reform the VA, and why?
It's another good step. We also passed the Dr. Christopher Kirkpatrick Whistleblower Protection Act. That is in direct reaction to the events at Toma. That passed the Senate now unanimously, and I actually had a meeting with Trey Gowdy to try and move that through his House Oversight Committee to get that passed through the House as well, and then get signed into law. So now we'll continue this. There's never going to be a full solution, but I'm manufacturer. I'm into continuous improvement, and each one of these bills is, I think, continuous improvement.
Just a step in the right direction.
Oh, sure.
Anything else going on you want to talk about?
You pretty well covered the major issues, and I'm just working hard, focusing on these top priorities to get our economy growing, which is the number one component of the solution for all the challenges facing our country and our state.
And what are you hearing out there about anything, jobs or?
Well, right. Again, so much it is. When we're engaged in the healthcare debate, that ends up being. We just did a town hall with 3 different chambers, and most of the questions were on Obamacare. And truthfully, I would like to say there's an awful lot of scaremongering out there. A lot of false claims made that we're going to take people's Medicaid away from them. In Wisconsin, where we didn't accept the Medicaid expansion, and even Medicaid expansion is going to be putting on a glide path of no further expansion after a couple of years. What I'm trying to do is protect core Medicaid. The vulnerable, the people that Medicaid was really established to protect, the elderly, the children, disabled individuals. When you expand it into non-disabled or able-bodied adults without children, and we can't afford it, you put at risk core Medicaid, and that's what I'm trying to protect. But people in Wisconsin on core Medicaid should not worry. Nobody's trying to take it away from you. You'll still have that core Medicaid. I'm going to do everything I can to protect your access to good quality health care.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks.